Everyone. I hope you are all staying safe and doing well this evening. I'm going to take you through my video critique now. So we've got a handful of submissions, a few things we want to talk about. First off, I wanted to just welcome Tyler to the group. Tyler, this is a really nice image that you posted for your first challenge for the power of light. I really like the gradient in the background. I like some of the warm elements over the cool elements, like the kind of the warmth of the light bouncing off the water, all really interesting stuff. There's a few things that I actually would improve upon. Like I think, and it might just be the single frame that we stopped on here, but I feel like we can get some more shaping on this character's face in here, like wrap that light around a little bit more. But I'm really liking what we're seeing here on the light kind of coming around him. Lots of shaping on this gentleman's beard. Love the little bit of light hitting here that doesn't really make much sense at all, but just reminds us the name of the boat. Um, but yeah, their warm tones of the skin of the characters is allowing them to pop off of the background. Some good shaping. The mood I feel like can be pushed a little bit more. It's pretty. It's pretty. The one thing that I like about it is it's a little bit optimistic with these two gentlemen looking up into the light. I figure that's kind of cool. But I would do it a little bit more glowy, a little bit more happy. But I certainly appreciate you posting this reference, and I look forward to your contributions to the group. So next up, I want to talk about Dana submitted a couple of render layers from her submissions. And now these aren't going to be perfect because I'm compositing JPEGs, which isn't ideal. But a few things I want to talk about with your base layers. And this is the image that you submitted yesterday, just to have that in there for reference. So first of all, with your fill light layer, make sure that you're not including your sky in your base render. And I'll show you why that matters here in a second, but just you'll want to have that as a separate element to be composited in later. It's certainly okay to include it as an HDR um, in your image, but you don't want to have that baked into your render because then it causes some problems. Like I said, I'll show you that in a second. And then for your volumetric light, totally cool. Just there's some actual light contribution up here, and you don't want to include that either. You want the volumetric light to just be the volumetric. So make sure it's not emitting any specular or diffuse, but more importantly, the shaders on the objects are that like matte black thing that I show you guys in the examples. Um, if you're looking for the example on that, go to the volumetric lighting in the lighting and animated film course. I know you're probably not there yet, but you can just hop into that lecture and it'll show you how to break out that pass. So when you bring them all together, the one thing that stands out to me first is that the key light isn't contributing as much as we would like for it to. It's giving good shaping up here, but it's not really giving us anything down here. It's giving us a couple spots in the foreground, but we want to feel it more. We want more pockets of light because the pockets of light kind of sprinkled around the scene are going to be what give it the scale. Now we've talked about making this the center of attention back here, so let's really hit up the front of that and then allow some not so intense pockets of light to hit here. Now, I've talked a lot about in the classes about, creating a key light, right? Like one key light. Know that you can create a couple of them as long as, from the audience's standpoint, they all feel like they're coming from the same direction. Especially because it's like a still frame and you're compositing a still frame together. Don't feel like you have to have one light carrying all the weight. You can put a couple of them in there and cheat that a little bit. In terms of and then I just plus these, and then I'm just plussing these elements together, and then screening that one over. I could have plussed this one too, but I was just trying to cap off the super brights. That looks better in this capacity. But what I end up doing is I'm looking at this fill light, and if the sunlight is getting this bright, I look for more contribution out of the fill than what we're seeing here. Also, some more saturation. This is pretty grayed out. So if I like, let's do this. Let's go and expose this up a little bit to kind of get a little bit more light. So not paying attention to the sky at all because that's going to blow out. And again, that's kind of what we don't want to happen. I generally would want my fill light to be kind of up in this region here, and then we will just hue correct it, because I would want there to be a little bit more blue overall in the light, and maybe a little bit less red. Yeah, a little less red. Maybe a little more red. I guess maybe something in there might make a little bit more sense. And now when we're building these together, see, like there's not enough key light contribution, but you can start to see how these form together. And then once you add the volumetric light, you're not going to see it too much because of the brightness of the clouds here, but then it kind of all starts to set into place a little bit. And then what you can do is you can, add in some light glow type stuff. So here's a keyer node. We're going to look at the alpha channel, pull in just the brighter element. We'll go ahead and be generous with this because, like I said, there's not a lot of key lights in the foreground here. Then we can merge this, or merge the original image inside of this. So you can see we can start to get those color elements in, and then blur it up. This is a smaller image, 960 by 540, so we'll just say like 5 pixels, and then we'll screen it back over. And you can see there's just some like nice little glowy elements that are being added in there as well. You can add a vignette, but that would be my biggest thing with you, would be to make sure that we're getting some more key light contributions, adding a little bit of color saturation into the fill value as a whole, and then making sure that the individual components and individual lights aren't contributing too much. You want to render them in more chunks so you have the ability to composite them together later. So that would be my advice there. Let's go. Let's see. There's 3. So was there Dana 1? Let me see. Yeah, sorry, I think I missed one there. There we go. Oh, yes. Okay. So your Mr. Bean here, the color of his skin is looking a lot better. Still a little bit more bounce light in here. Like this, if you just look at this, it just feels like a little bit of a beard on him. So just some more like a bounce light coming up in here. For the background, I think that we can go a little bit less saturated on the background surrounding him, so that we can allow his saturation and skin tones to start to pop out a little bit more. Because what's happening when it's kind of like warm on, it's basically just like a warm on warm problem, and we can kind of make it a little bit of a warm over neutral to get him to pop a little bit more. The other thing that I would really like for you to work on is his hair. I mentioned this the other day. So you can start with this value, and then what I would do is take render out separate passes of just reflection in his hair. Like you can even turn the shader of his hair to be like a mirrored reflection, and then just get some like nice specular highlights, like broad specular highlights up in here, and then start to kind of layer those into the image. The eyes are looking a little bit contrasty, like the brights are looking a little bit bright and the darks are a little too dark. So let's even those and take down the high point. And then watch out for some bright points here on his collar. We don't want that overpowering things too much. And then, let's take this off. Yeah, this is a nice kick light here on this side that kind of adds some more shaping. I like that a lot. And everything else is starting to kind of fall into place. So I think that's looking really well. For your disco scene, looking better here. I would just make sure to up some samples on the light that's got a lot of noise down here. And then I would go ahead and just render that out, and maybe get a little bit more of that kind of like a circle of light kind of bouncing up there too. Just kind of signify the center of the room, like there's more light on the dance floor or something like that. And then I would call this one done, because this was just a quick little exercise for you. For your toucan, I think the desaturation is looking pretty good. It's a little bit more saturated than the reference, but I think that's okay. In terms of the specular highlights, um, again, don't feel like you need to do everything in one render. Render them out as separate passes and kind of paint them in. So if you are, um, so I learned this when I was doing some interior architecture photography, right? I'd always see these images in these magazines, and they were just like these beautiful interior spaces. And what I learned when I was doing that was that they usually are a combination of like 10 or 12 different images of different exposures that get pieced together. Think of this as that. This doesn't need to be like one pure render that looks amazing and it's great. Like go ahead and render this in chunks. Like if if you need more spec light on here, make a light that looks good on there. Who cares if it's too much on the beak, because then you'll have it as a separate pass and you can just add it just into this region. Same thing with like this fur kind of blowing out here. If you need to render a couple different values of the fur and kind of paint them together, that is totally fine. Again, the audience does not care how you got to the final image. They just care how that final image looks. There's still some weird shapes going on in here. I think it is probably because of one of your lights. So just make sure that you identify that. And if it is, because again, this is a brand new asset. So if it is something with the asset, then let us know there. But I think that's where I would go with that one. Let's see. And then moving on to, so Brie, you had these submissions and good stuff here. So first thing that I noticed was just this depth of field. It's too strong here, it makes it feel like a miniature. And I saw your note about these two being too similar. And I think it's working better for this image. So what I would do if I were you is I would um, find ways to sneak more key light into the foreground here. I know it doesn't match your reference, but I totally agree with you that you don't want it to look like on your demo reel that you had the exact same lighting and then just change the colors a little bit. So with that in mind, I think that you should sneak some more key light into this foreground area, and then that would create um, and leave a distance here in the middle that's in shadow, because that'll create some nice shaping there and create two areas of focus, because right now more than the other one, this foreground area is getting a little bit flat. I would take down whatever light is in these windows here. They're not doing you any favors right now. They actually just look like strange and saturated, specifically on this one here. I think this is okay, but it just feels like very red light inside that space. And then let's look a little bit here. With this one, since this is our kind of our only light source, I think you could push it a little bit further out into the space so it can um, kind of like hit in here and maybe a little over here. The other question is, again, this is a little bit of red light in here. Like I don't know what this is reflecting, because there's nothing that's really that saturated red in the scene to to um, to justify that amount of saturation. So I would tone that down and neutralize that. And then let's see. And then maybe if you do, like, this would be an example of having some lights back here and then having that light spill onto the street, either from the windows at the very back here like this one, or you can have some window light coming out of here and shining on here, because like right now the windows are kind of like half on, and that they're not doing enough to like cause any lighting influence on the scene, but they're also not totally dark. And if you wanted to keep them totally dark, that would be more of like a super late at night type feeling. And then this one, yeah, I think this one's looking probably the best of the three. I would like a little bit more fall off between, um, like this line feels a little bit hard here, and I would like a little bit more value, a space for that value to change from the brightness to the darkness. Um, This small pocket of light here, I'm not quite sure if I guess that's light creeping in the top. But then if it's coming in here, wouldn't it also like reach across here? But the reason why I say that is it almost feels like like right up here, there's a spotlight or a street lamp or something causing that. And same deal here. This window looks pretty nice though. That one feels on, and it feels kind of appropriate for the lighting of this scene. And the only other thing was I would just make sure that you're pushing. It's hard to tell with it out of focus, but make sure you're getting some specularity and specular hits like in these leaves, um, maybe in the boxes in this watering can and in these props over here, because it looks a little bit matte right now. So that's all I got for you all. If you have any questions or if I missed anything, please let me know. But I just want to make sure that you're all staying safe, and that if you guys need anything from us, that we are here for you, both as artists and as people, because we want to be here to support you in any way that you guys need it. So reach out to us if you need anything, and we will talk to you all very soon. All right, happy lighting, everyone.